Jasmine Crockett stood behind the stage at the CNN event, her navy blue pants suit perfectly neat, her heart thumping as she heard Kash Patel's voice echo through the speakers. The former Trump Defense Department official was already on the stage confidently saying, "Crockett is just another progressive with zero knowledge of how national security works." The audience gasped at his strong words, a mix of cheers and boos filling the air. Through the curtain, Crockett could see Patel in his sharp grey suit, waving his arms to the crowd. His smug smile was easy to see as he added, "She's all talk, no substance," which is typical for someone who's never handled secret papers. The crowd grew louder as Patel's fans clapped with excitement. What Patel didn't know was that Crockett had brought something unexpected, proof that would completely change his story. As the first-term Congresswoman from Texas held her folder tightly, her eyes narrowed with determination. This wasn't just another political discussion. This was her time to show Patel for what he was on national television. When the host announced, "And now joining us is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett," she took a deep breath and stepped into the bright lights, ready to turn this surprise attack into Patel's worst nightmare. Before we get further into this shocking fight, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on the most explosive political face-offs. Tell us where you are watching from in the comments. The CN studio lights shined as Kash Patel controlled the stage like he owned it. The former Defense Department Chief of Staff under Trump stood with the confidence of someone used to power, his well-groomed look matching his carefully planned talking points. The moderator, Chris Wallace, introduced him as one of the most influential people in the previous government's national security group. Patel nodded with thanks, enjoying the scattered applause from conservative audience members. His reputation came before him. A loyal Trump supporter, a strong critic of the Biden government, and a frequent commentator who never avoided a fight. "I'm here to talk facts," Patel began, his voice carrying the authority he'd developed during his time at the Pentagon. "Our national security has been put at risk under this government, and representatives like Jasmine Crockett are a part of the problem. They're focused on politics for show, while our enemies grow more powerful." The conservative part of the audience nodded in agreement with a few shouts of, "Tell it like it is," echoing through the studio. "Congresswoman Crockett is a perfect example," Patel continued, pointing toward the side stage where she would soon appear, a first-term representative who spends more time on social media than understanding basic national security rules. "She's criticized our intelligence community without ever having handled a classified document. It's easy to throw stones when you've never been in the ring." His supporters clapped with excitement while others shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. The room was clearly divided. Chris Wallace tried to get back control. "Strong words, Mr. Patel. Let's bring out Congresswoman Crockett to respond." The bright light moved to the side of the stage as Jasmine Crockett came out. At 42, the new Congresswoman from Texas carried herself with the confident grace she had developed during her years as a civil rights lawyer. Her navy blue pants suit was complemented by a fancy necklace, her expression calm but determined. Unlike Patel, who had years in Washington's inner circles, Crockett represented a newer generation of forward-thinking lawmakers. Elected in 2022, she had quickly become a powerful voice on the House Judiciary Committee, known for her sharp legal mind and unwillingness to step down from a challenge. As she took her seat across from Patel, the contrast was noticeable, his establishment confidence versus her new determination. Wallace introduced her as a rising star in the Democratic Party and a member of the House Judiciary Committee who has spoken out on issues of government openness. "Thank you for having me," Crockett said, her voice steady as she placed a folder on the table next to her. "I've been listening to Mr. Patel's descriptions, and I'm looking forward to setting the record straight." Behind the scenes, Crockett's aide slipped a note to the production team. "Be ready to show Exhibit A when signaled." On the note was information about documents that would change everything about this face-off. The stakes were clear to everyone watching. This wasn't just about two political figures arguing about policy. This was about trustworthiness, genuineness, and who truly understood the duties of handling national security. For Patel, it was about keeping his reputation as a trusted insider. For Crockett, it was about proving that new voices deserved respect, especially when armed with facts. What Patel didn't know was that Crockett hadn't come without anything. The folder next to her held information that could tear down his entire argument and his credibility in seconds. The tension in the studio grew thicker as Chris Wallace turned to Jasmine Crockett. "Congresswoman, Mr. Patel has basically questioned your right to talk about national security matters. How do you respond?" Crockett adjusted her microphone, her expression calm but determined. "First, let me thank Mr. Patel for his service. It's always useful to hear from former officials, especially those who had such unique experiences in the last government." Her slight pause on unique didn't go unnoticed, causing some nervous laughter from the audience. Patel's smile tightened at the edges. However, she continued, "I find it interesting that Mr. Patel questions my qualifications when my role on the Judiciary Committee specifically requires oversight of national security matters. That's literally part of my job description as a member of Congress." Patel leaned forward, interrupting her. "Committee assignments don't equal knowledge, Congresswoman. I've actually handled top secret information. I've been in the room where decisions affecting global security were made. With all due respect, reading briefings isn't the same as creating them." The interruption drew scattered applause from his fans. Wallace tried to step in, but Patel continued, "The American people deserve representatives who understand the serious nature of these matters, not politicians who use security issues for talking points on CNN." His voice grew louder, more confident. "When was the last time you were briefed on a level 1 security threat? Have you ever had to make decisions about classified intelligence that could affect American lives?" The questions came one after another, clearly meant to overwhelm Crockett and paint her as inexperienced. His fans in the audience nodded in agreement, while others watched uncomfortably as Patel continued his attack. This administration and its defenders, like Congresswoman Crockett, have weakened our standing globally. Our enemies are emboldened because they know our leadership lacks courage. It's easy to criticize from the sidelines when you've never been in the game. Wallace finally managed to break in. "Mr. Patel, let's allow the Congresswoman to respond." Crockett remained composed, though her eyes had narrowed slightly during Patel's long speech. "Thank you, Chris. Mr. Patel seems very concerned about handling classified information correctly, which I find interesting given his history." She glanced down at her folder, but didn't open it yet. "Before I address that specifically, I want to remind everyone that congressional oversight of intelligence and security matters is a constitutional duty. It's not sitting on the sidelines. It's doing the job the American people elected me to do." Patel scoffed openly, shaking his head in dismissal. This reaction didn't go unnoticed by the audience or by Wallace, who raised an eyebrow. Furthermore, Crockett continued, "My background as a civil rights lawyer taught me the importance of both security and proper procedure. National security and constitutional rights aren't opposing forces. They must exist together in a working democracy." "Nice words." Patel broke in again, his tone becoming more and more patronizing. But again, no substance behind them. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Politics for show instead of real experience." The audience's reaction was mixed, some cheering Patel's forceful way, others starting to feel annoyed at his repeated interruptions. Wallace turned to Patel. "Mr. Patel, you've had your say. Please allow the Congresswoman to finish her point." Patel gestured in fake respect, the smug smile never leaving his face. "By all means. I'm just hoping we might eventually get to some substance." The camera caught Crockett's expression, not anger, but something closer to satisfaction, as if Patel was walking directly into a trap she had set. She continued, her voice steady. "Since Mr. Patel is so concerned about the proper handling of sensitive information, perhaps we should discuss his own record in this area." Her hand moved toward the folder next to her. "Because while he questions my qualifications, there are some serious questions about his own behavior that the American people deserve answers to." The feeling in the studio changed noticeably. Patel's expression flickered for a moment as Crockett opened her folder and took out several documents. The cameraman zoomed in on the papers, which looked like official records with government letterheads. "Mr. Patel, are you familiar with the Inspector General's report dated June 2022 regarding unauthorized sharing of classified information during the transition period?" Crockett asked, her tone now sharper, more like a lawyer's. For the first time, Patel hesitated, the confidence in his expression wavering. "I'm familiar with many reports, Congresswoman. You'll need to be more specific." Crockett nodded to the production team, and a document appeared on the large screen behind them, an official-looking report with certain parts highlighted. The audience murmured as they tried to read the text. Page 47, paragraph 3. Crockett said calmly, "It specifically names you, Mr. Patel, in connection with what the IG called troubling breaches of established security protocols." Not my words, the Inspector General's. The studio became completely silent. Even Wallace seemed caught off guard by this turn of events. Patel's face had hardened, his earlier smug smile replaced by a tight-lipped expression. "That report is taken completely out of context," he finally responded, his voice lacking its previous power, "and parts of it have been argued against by multiple officials." Crockett nodded. "I thought you might say that. That's why I brought the follow-up assessment as well." She pulled out another document. This one's from September 2023, restating the original findings and noting that the disputed parts didn't include the sections about your actions. The temperature in the room seemed to rise. Patel's fans had grown quiet while others in the audience leaned forward, sensing they were witnessing something unexpected. "This is a political hit job," Patel said, his voice rising again, typical of the left to try to distract from their own failures by digging up old accusations. Crockett remained calm. "These are official government documents, Mr. Patel. If they've been proven wrong, I'd be very interested to see that evidence." She turned to face the audience directly. "What we have here is a clear case of someone accusing others of what they did themselves. Mr. Patel questions my right to speak while his own record shows precisely the kind of mishandling of sensitive information that he accuses others of." The studio erupted, half the audience applauding Crockett's calm takedown, the other half shouting in Patel's defense. Wallace struggled to restore order as the confrontation reached new levels of intensity. Patel's face had turned red, his composure breaking visibly as he realized Crockett had come armed with far more than talking points. He'd expected an easy target, a new congresswoman he could dismiss. Instead, he found himself on the defensive with his own record now under the spotlight. And Crockett wasn't finished. Not even close. As Wallace finally managed to quiet the audience, she reached for yet another document in her folder. "There's more we should discuss, Mr. Patel," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Shall we talk about the December testimony, where you seem to contradict your own previous statements about security clearances?" The look on Patel's face made it clear. What had started as his attempt to discredit Crockett was rapidly becoming his own worst nightmare. The studio had fallen into a shocked silence. The confident, almost cocky behavior that Kash Patel had shown earlier had vanished. He sat stiffly in his chair, eyes darting between Crockett, Wallace, and the damning documents displayed on the screen behind them. "Let's be very clear about what we're seeing here," Crockett continued, her voice steady and powerful. She stood up, taking control of the stage in a way that shifted the entire power dynamic of the confrontation. "Mr. Patel began this segment questioning my qualifications to discuss national security, suggesting I lack the experience to handle sensitive information." She gestured to the screen where the Inspector General's report remained displayed. Yet, these official documents show that Mr. Patel himself was cited for what the report calls significant deviations from established security protocols during his time at the Department of Defense. Wallace, regaining his professional composure, turned to Patel. "Mr. Patel, would you like to respond to these claims?" Patel straightened his tie, visibly trying to get back control of the situation. "What Congresswoman Crockett is doing is exactly what I was talking about, taking isolated incidents out of context to score political points. That report was politically motivated." "And politically motivated?" Crockett asked, her eyebrow raised. "The Inspector General who wrote this report was appointed by President Trump, the same president you served. Are you suggesting your own administration's appointees were working against you?" The question hung in the air as Patel struggled to come up with a response. The audience watched closely, many recording on their phones, aware they were witnessing a key moment. "Let me continue," Crockett said. Not waiting for Patel's answer, she nodded to the production team. and the screen changed to show a new document, a transcript of congressional testimony. This is from your testimony before the House Oversight Committee on December 13, 2021. She read aloud, "I never shared any classified information outside of authorized channels." That was your statement under oath. She looked directly at Patel, yet the IG report specifically details 3 incidents where you did exactly that. Would you like to explain the difference? Patel's face flushed deeper. This is crazy. You're picking and choosing statements and purposely misrepresenting. I'm quoting you directly. Crockett interrupted, her voice remaining calm but firm. Your words, Mr. Patel, under oath. The contrast between them couldn't have been more clear. Crockett standing confidently with proof in hand, Patel becoming more and more defensive and upset. The audience felt the shift, with even some of Patel's initial fans looking uncomfortable. But the most interesting part, Crockett continued, pulling out yet another document, is what happened after these incidents were reported. She signaled again, and the screen displayed what looked like an email chain with several names blocked out. These communications show that, after being told about security rule violations, you tried to have the people who reported these violations moved to different departments. Some might call that retaliation, Mr. Patel. Gasps rippled through the audience. Wallace leaned forward, clearly as surprised by these new details as everyone else. That is a complete fabrication, Patel responded, his voice rising. Those staffing decisions were made for operational reasons that had nothing to do with any reports. Crockett nodded thoughtfully. Interesting, because I also have here. She produced another document, the sworn statement of James Keller, former Deputy Director of Operations, stating that you explicitly told him, and I quote, "We need to clean house of anyone who doesn't understand how things work now." She looked up. This conversation supposedly took place 3 days after the first security violation was reported. The studio had become completely silent. Even Wallace seemed for a moment to be at a loss for words. Patel's fans, who had been loud at the beginning of the segment, were now quiet, many shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This is character assassination, Patel finally sputtered, his composure fully cracking. You come on national television with these selectively edited documents and try to... They're not edited, Mr. Patel, Crockett said, her voice firm but not unkind. They're the official record, and they tell a very different story than the one you've been sharing about who is and isn't qualified to handle national security matters. She turned to face the audience directly, her expression serious. Let me be clear, I'm not bringing this up to score political points. I'm bringing it up because national security is too important for hypocrisy. When Mr. Patel questions my qualifications while his own record shows these issues, the American people deserve to know that. The audience erupted in applause, not just from her fans, but from all over the studio. It was the response of people who recognized truth cutting through political showmanship. Wallace, regaining control, turned to Patel. Mr. Patel, would you like to address these specific claims about getting back at staff who reported security violations? Patel's face had gone from red to pale. He adjusted his microphone, clearly buying time to gather himself. These are complex matters that can't be reduced to small parts. National security operations involve nuanced decisions that might look questionable to outsiders without the full context. It was a non-answer, and everyone knew it. The audience's reaction made that clear with several audible scoffs. Crockett saw her chance and delivered the final blow. You know what, Mr. Patel, I actually agree with you about one thing. National security is nuanced and complex. That's why it requires integrity, openness, and being held responsible for your actions. It requires leaders who follow the rules they expect others to follow. She gathered her papers.